I'm Robby B, adult child and para-alcoholic. The topic of this video is my 4th year in ACA. This is the year my recovery started to accelerate. That program started to work me in unexpected ways. But first, a quick recap. In year 1, I read the Big Red Book and went to meetings. This provided a solid foundation for the work that followed. In year 2, I worked the steps using ACA's Steps Workbook. I did this with 6 other men on Zoom. In year 3, I worked the Laundry List Workbook, which dove into the 14 traits. I did this with the same group. When that was complete, we decided to continue together on the Loving Parent Guidebook, which had just been published. For more detail on the first 3 years, please watch the prior videos in this series. For those who have, thank you for your continued support. And now, let's continue the journey into year 4, where I began working ACA's stated solution: to become your own loving parent. For me, this felt like uncharted territory, which I'm sure was normal, hence the need for the guidebook, which, by the way, is often referred to by its abbreviation, LPG, Loving Parent Guidebook. Some people refer to it as a workbook, but ACA considers it a guidebook. Why is that? I suppose it's due to the fact that becoming our own loving parent is something we must do for the rest of our lives, and we'll need to be guided over and over again on how to do this. With that said, when I was going through it, it felt like a workbook. In fact, I considered it more difficult than the steps and laundry list workbooks. Why? Because I love the steps and I love learning about the traits, but I have an aversion to loving myself, which is why I have the traits in the first place. This creates a catch-22 because in order to heal the emotional wounds that created and sustained the laundry list, we need to practice self-love. But the traits are obstacles to self-love. In other words, the problem blocks us from the solution. This gives meaning to step 1. We admitted we were powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism. However, we're only powerless when we fight this disease, para-alcoholism, on our own. We're not powerless when we have a higher power, which includes fellow travelers and the ACA fellowship as a whole. The bottom line, don't do this work alone. Do it with others. The work I did in the Loving Parent Guidebook expanded my understanding and awareness of my inner child. I also discovered my inner teen, whose job was to protect my inner child. My job is to reparent them both with love. I've learned to identify who is being triggered through feelings. I found that fear often originates in my inner child and anger in the inner teen. Reparenting starts by listening to what they have to say. When I dull or distract from my feelings or otherwise dissociate, I abandon them just like my parents did. The guidebook helped me to break this cycle. I also learned to identify my inner critic, which ACA calls the critical inner parent. The critic's job is to protect the inner child and inner teen. But because their fear and anger has never been resolved, it thinks that I'm still 5 years old. At that age, the critic's message of don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel were valid. They kept me safe. As an adult, those messages keep me trapped in dysfunction. My job is to process the fear, anger, and shame and grief so the inner critic does not feel it needs to protect me. I can then repurpose the critic and allow it to be a useful ally. The critic does not want to be a critic. This is important to understand. The guidebook helped me to awaken my inner loving parent, to reparent my inner kids, and repurpose my inner critic. Do I do this perfectly? Hell no. I still struggle with my inner family and will spend the rest of my life learning how to do this work. I have to always remember progress, not perfection. At least I have the tools now to make progress. My 4th year in ACA was dedicated pretty much exclusively to working the Loving Parent Guidebook. In fact, the work continued well into my 5th year. To give you an idea as to how that compares to the other workbooks, my group of 7 men took 9 months to go through the STEPS workbook, 14 months to work the laundry list workbook, and nearly 18 months to work the Loving Parent Guidebook. One thing I want to point out is that doing the STEPS and laundry list work, at least for me, brought up a lot of grief, shame, and anger. Learning to process these feelings while acknowledging childhood trauma is not only a necessary part of the healing process, it made me see how much I needed to reparent myself. This was a turning point in my recovery, and it's when program started working me in unexpected ways. 6 months into the Loving Parent Guidebook, I decided to walk 500 miles across northern Spain on an ancient pilgrimage route known as the Camino de Santiago. I had never done anything so adventurous in my life. Coincidence? I don't think so. It was the result of my inner kids starting to feel safe. It was recovery in action. Please watch my video titled Camino Victory for a better understanding of the Camino Frances from a program perspective. And that wraps up this video, which is meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robby B. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.